Analyze the Lewis structure for formal charge to see if a better Lewis structure can be drawn. In a Lewis structure, a bond represents two shared electrons. When calculating formal charge, we imagine that although the two electrons are shared, each atom in the bond owns one of the two shared electrons. Each atom also owns all of its unshared electrons. Thus, in this Lewis structure, sulfur, which brought 6 valence electrons to the Lewis structure, only owns half of each bond. 1, 2, 3, 4. Subtract off the 4 owned electrons, and it is as though sulfur lost 2 electrons, and the charge then on the sulfur is a positive 2. Each oxygen brought 6 valence electrons to the structure. In this structure, each oxygen owns the 6 unshared electrons plus 1 more from the bond. Subtract the 7 from the 6 that were originally brought to the structure, and it is as though each oxygen has a -1 charge, or has effectively gained 1 electron. In a Lewis structure, the total of the formal charges has to add up to the overall charge on the structure. The sulfate ion has a -2 charge. Adding up the 4 minus charges and the 2 plus charge gives the overall charge of -2. If the separation of formal charge can be minimized to create a better Lewis structure, then do so. Sulfur is in the 3rd row of the periodic table. Thus, it has empty, unoccupied d orbitals available for use. We can take an unshared pair of electrons and move it in to create a double bond. This will cause the formal charge on oxygen to become 0 and begin to cancel the charge on the sulfur. Do this with another oxygen, and we can create a better Lewis structure in which 2 of the oxygens are doubly bonded to the sulfur. The other oxygens retain their original bonding. Complete the octet on the oxygens. The singly bonded oxygens remain unchanged and still have a formal charge of -1. The doubly bonded oxygens now have only 2 unshared pairs of electrons. In this Lewis structure, the sulfur now is sharing 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 valence electrons. However, it only owns half of each bond. So the sulfur, which had brought 6 valence electrons to the Lewis structure, now owns 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the shared electrons. This leads to a formal charge of 0. The doubly bonded oxygens, which had brought 6 valence electrons to the structure, now own 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This leads also to a formal charge of 0. We have now minimized the formal charge. There are now only 2 atoms in this structure that have a formal charge that is not equal to 0. The formal charge still adds up to the total charge on the ion. Thus, although the second structure exceeds the octet rule with a total of 12 valence electrons around the sulfur, it's a better Lewis structure in the sense that it has minimized the separation of formal charge.